Okay, here we are with part 2 of ranking of U.S. presidents. My first part 1, I finished with Calvin Coolidge. I'm counting down from 44 to number 1, worst presidents to the best presidents. Right now, we're getting number 11, Harry Truman. Very interesting president. Served from 1945 to 1953. 2 terms. But after Roosevelt served 12 years, Truman comes in. And what does he do? Well, the war is still raging, World War II. So in 1945, Pearl Harbor was bombed, and the United States was very mad at that. And the war was raging. And what does one of the most significant events in world history is Truman authorizes the dropping of the atomic bomb on Hiroshima in Japan. And as a result, hundreds of thousands of lives are destroyed and villages are wiped out. If you ask me the question, would I give the order to drop the atomic bomb? I don't know. That must have been the hardest decision. But as a result, World War II started to come to an end. Japan surrendered. Was there a better way to handle it? I don't know. So Truman was in charge of that. He had to deal with the Korean War, McCarthyism, U.S.-Soviet relationships, and social programs. I guess I'll put Harry Truman at number 11 on the countdown. Number 10. William Howard Taft. 1909, 1913, only 1 term. What does Howard Taft, and why is he so high? Well, let's see, where is he? Here, here's Taft. I like Taft, weighed 300 pounds. One of the largest presidents we had as far as weight. But he expanded interstate commerce between the states. Each states deal with each other in trading and supplies and commerce. So I like that. He expanded it. He lowered tariffs. The only drawback with Taft was the establishment of the federal income tax. We do need it to help pay for social programs and the operation of things in the United States. To me, I would just have a 10% flat tax across the board. Take 10% of people's income. And if you're rich, all more power to you, because you studied, you went to school, you educated yourself, and you work hard. That's why you're rich. People who don't work hard, don't educate themselves, and are lazy and take drugs and commit crimes, they have low incomes. I support the flat tax, 10% across the board. There are other areas where you can generate revenue. But to tax people 50%, I disagree. And to have brackets, 50%, 40%, 30%, 20%, 10%. You may argue that 10% for a low income hurts the person, where 10% for the rich income, upper income people doesn't hurt them. My advice, if you're in the lower bracket, educate yourself, work hard, and you'll make money. I did. I was a self-employed landscape gardener. Nobody gave me anything. I had to go out, find the jobs, work hard, work long weeks, educate myself. I got a college degree. As a result, I made reasonably good income. I wasn't rich, but I made enough income to support my family. 4 kids, bought a house, had a business for 43 years, and I retired successfully. It can be done. If I can do it, you can do it. Okay, well, that's William Howard Taft. I've got him on the countdown at number 10. Number 9, Franklin D. Roosevelt. Have you heard of him? Serves 12 years as president. Everybody else, either 8 years or 4 years. He goes 12 years, and would you believe he got elected for the 4th term? And he died in office in his 4th term shortly after. But if he lives, he would have served 16 years. Big flaw with Franklin D. Roosevelt, and I don't appreciate that. You say we need him for the war, and you don't change presidents during the war. I disagree. 8 years is enough for Franklin Roosevelt, and you get someone else in to carry the policies and continue on. So that's, I don't respect Franklin Roosevelt for doing that, serving 12 years. But you got to give him credit because that was after the stock market crash, 1929, and then the Great Depression was rolling on. 1933, Roosevelt says, all right, let's do something about it. And what does he do? He creates a New Deal. He ends prohibition. He strengthens a Social Security program. He was a capitalist. He deals with the United Nations, and he starts to turn things around with his New Deal, helping people out, get back on their feet, and to rid of the Great Depression. It took many, many years to do it, but by the 1940s, 41, we enter into the war, Pearl Harbor, and then through those war years, eventually, people buy military bonds. The economy started to pick up right after the war ended. And then you have the boom of the 1950s. So I'll give credit to Roosevelt for being a strong military leader. See, he starts his term in 1933. By 1941 is 8 years. And so since World War II starts, I guess the general feeling was, I'm going to serve a 3rd term because you can't change in the war. I disagree with that. You could have got somebody else in there, and he could have fought the war. Is Roosevelt the only one qualified to be president and to deal with World War II? It's a big debate on that. But anyways, he went through the war years, and he did deal with Britain, and he dealt with the Soviet Union, and he won the war. The United States won with the help of other foreign nations. So Roosevelt put him in at number 10 as far as greatest presidents. I'm going to say a good president, not the best. Counting down. Number 9. Am I at number 9? I'm at number 8. My apology. Number 8, Ronald Reagan. Why? 1981 to 1989. Serves 2 terms. His first term, he beats Jimmy Carter. And he starts to get the economy going with tax cuts. I like that. Did you know that the tax rates for the rich people was up to 90%? So if you make $1 million, 90% is $900,000 in taxes. Of course, they had maybe some write-offs or capital deductions, but 90%. So he lowered the highest tax rate from 90, and it was 80% for some and 70% for some, and he lowered it down to about 30%, I believe it was. I don't know the exact figures. 35% range for the highest brackets. And as a result, people had more money, they hired more, corporations expanded, bought equipment, and you had an economic boom through his first term. Ronald Reagan. He strengthened the defense programs, invested heavily in military equipment, but you had economic growth through his years, and people had more money, and that's what you want. You want people working, spending, investing, starting up businesses, corporations hiring. That's what you want. Then he runs for the second term, and you know what happened? He won 49 states. That's a record. The only state he lost was Minnesota. Walter Mondale was the opposing mate, and he got one state. How embarrassing. Ronald Reagan wins in a landslide in 1984 with 49 states. That will never happen again. Our last election, basically 50-50, 55-45, all the elections. Whew. So Ronald Reagan, and during that term, he deals with the Soviet Union, he deals with the Berlin Wall, Gorbachev, United Kingdom relationships. He deals with Margaret Thatcher in Britain. They have a good relationship. But what he's known for is that famous one line. He's in Berlin, and there's a wall separating West and East Germany. And he gets up there and does something very bold, Ronald Reagan. He says, tear this wall down. As a result, later the wall came down and Germany becomes one country. How about that? All right, Ronald Reagan, number 8. Number 7, Teddy Roosevelt on my list. When did he serve? Here's Teddy, 1901 to 1909, 2 terms. And of course, after the Reconstruction in the late 1800s and at the turn of the century, America starts to come around. You have the Wright brothers inventing the airplane or flying the airplane. You have Henry Ford starting to make cars. And what does Teddy Roosevelt do? I've got him here. Let's see. He comes in. He's the youngest president. I think he came in at 42 years old. Roosevelt. All right, here he is. He was progressive. He regulated the railroads. Didn't want them to get out of control. Establishes the Food and Drug Administration. He founded 230 million acres of public lands and forests to preserve them for what? National resources and the establishment of national parks. I think Yellowstone was the first national park. I believe it was in the late 1800s. Then you get Yosemite going, and the sequoias, the Shenandoahs. All the national parks get going because of the leadership of Teddy Roosevelt. And you see the famous picture. He's up there in Yosemite with John Muir, and he's gazing at the national parks, and he say, let's keep this for future generations to enjoy. And as a result, you have the national park system. You got to put Teddy Roosevelt as one of our finest presidents on the countdown. Got him at number 7. Number 6. John Adams, our second president. In other polls, he's ranked differently. I don't know why, but he was our second president. And he is very, very significant. John Adams. Why? He helps form and negotiate the principles of our United States Constitution. He's one of the founding fathers, George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson. These guys, they saw the vision of America as one glorious nation. John Adams is right there. And he's known for his vocal opposition to Great Britain colonizing America. And he spoke out. You had the U.S. and the quasi-wars, and John Adams rallied about independence. And he told Europe, you stay away and don't interfere in United States affairs. John Adams, very strong. I like him, and I put him at number 6 as the best presidents of all time. You may disagree. Other surveys have him higher. I don't know why. But those first presidents, first 5 or 6, crucial to the establishment of the United States of America and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Number 6, number 5, James Monroe. (1817 to 1825). He serves 2 terms, and you have the Monroe Doctrine. And what is that? What is the Monroe Doctrine? That is United States and other foreign countries. You let us deal with our Constitution, and you foreign countries, you deal with your own Constitution. We are an independent United States of America. James Monroe. He's the father of our U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights. He writes the Federalist Papers. He helps establish the system of checks and balances between the executive, the legislature, and the judicial. James Monroe, crucial for him to be in there. If you get some other liberal in there that says, all right, yeah, Europe can help us. No, you don't want that. You want Britain being involved in our affairs at that time. They were breaking away from the King of England. And they wanted America to have its own system of governance. Is that the right word? So James Monroe, very crucial that he was there at the right time. What if you had James Buchanan in 1817? It would have been different. Franklin Pierce or Fillmore, any of those guys, it would have been different. But James Monroe, crucial. I got him. Number 5. Number 4. Who else? James Madison. Don't you agree with me that he was crucial? 1809 to 1817, beginning of the 19th century. And what does James Madison do? He's a father of our U.S. Constitution. He encouraged Western expansion. He says, Europe, we don't want you colonizing over here. We are America. James Madison, the Bill of Rights, he establishes Federalist Papers. He believes in a system of checks and balances. He doesn't want a dictator king. He wants a president who oversees. He has his executive powers, but he believed in the legislative powers of the Congress, House of Representatives, and the Senate, and he believed in the judicial powers, Supreme Court and courts of appeals, and so forth. James Madison, crucial that he was in the right place at the right time. Number 4 on my list. 3. Who's number 3? Thomas Jefferson. He serves 1801 to 1809, 2 terms. I like that they didn't serve a 3rd or a 4th term and say, hey, I'm a king of the U.S. I like that. Washington sets the precedent, 8 years. Adams only 4 years. Why? because Jefferson wanted to get in there and he beats Adams, so he gets in as a third president. But what does Thomas Jefferson do when he gets into office? He purchases a Louisiana Purchase, which is a huge area of land. As a result, it incorporates and becomes part of America. That was crucial, and he got such a super deal on that. Talk about a swap meet. Thomas Jefferson executed the greatest swap meet in the history of the United States by purchasing the Louisiana territories. How about that? And he establishes a military academy, Jefferson. He establishes a Library of Congress to keep all the records. But he's famous for, in 1776, the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. He has a vision, Thomas Jefferson, along with Madison, Monroe, Adams, Washington, George Washington. All these guys had the vision. We want America to be distinct. We set up a constitution. We have the Bill of Rights. We have our representatives. We have our senators. We have our judicial Supreme Court to iron out differences. What a vision, these guys. Now, obviously, Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, and Monroe all had flaws because they had slaves. Did they mistreat the slaves and torture them? I don't think so. A lot of these slaves lived on elegant plantations and mansions. Of course, it was wrong to own slaves and treat them as less than human. And could they have done something? My earlier argument of doing away with slavery? I think deep in their heart, as they got going with the establishment of America in the late 1700s or the early 1800s, I think they were starting to come around and say, hey, all men should be created equal. Come on, Jefferson. If you said that in the Declaration of Independence, why did you have slaves? Big, huge question. Those are the flaws of our founding fathers, but I say that the vision that they had of creating America was monumental, and here we are today, 50 states, and look at all the freedoms we have, and America is the best country in the world, hands down. Hands down, over China, Russia, Europe, any country, America, number one. No argument there, all right. Who's number two on the list? George Washington. Why? Did you know that when George Washington was elected president, he received all the electoral votes? Every one of them. No contest. And that will never happen again. Reagan came close, but George Washington, our first president, he establishes copyright laws. He establishes banks, maps. He stops the Whiskey Rebellion. He establishes the principle of a cabinet, a perfect union, and he refused to be a king. He only wanted to serve 2 terms. He could have kept going. In fact, I don't think they had a provision in the Constitution that said you can only serve 2 terms. I think it was open-ended. And Washington could have served a 3rd and a 4th. But he said, nope, I'm not a king and I'm not a dictator. I will serve 8 years. Died shortly after that. In fact, he served from 1789 to 1797. And he died 2 years later, 1799. So if he would have been in the 3rd term, he would have died, and Adams would have became president. John Adams was his vice president, and that's how he became the 2nd president. But George Washington, he was a military leader. He helped with the American Revolution. He was a general crossing the Potomac, all that. He was the right person at the right time to become our first president. George Washington. You know the name of his wife? Martha, right? You know, if you go to Washington, D.C., they have Mount Vernon, right? Is that where Washington presided? You know, he was the first president, or he was the president that didn't have a White House at that time. Isn't that interesting? The later presidents, they were able to live in the White House, but George wasn't in the White House. They didn't have it at the time. That's number 2. Of course, who's number 1 on the list? All-time best president. And every survey and every ranking on YouTube and every history book and all this, they always put honest Abe Lincoln as number 1, as our greatest, best president of all 44. And I agree. What happens with Abraham Lincoln? Well, after the states secede from the Union in 1861 because of his election, Abraham Lincoln had the hardest presidency of all time. And his main goal was to preserve the Union. 13 states left. So things were getting chaotic. And so as a result, when Fort Sumter, whoever fired the first shot on Fort Sumter, and the Civil War begins in 1861, Lincoln in his first term has to deal with the North and the South. And his main goal was to preserve the Union and to free the slaves. And so we have a civil war that rages on for 4 years. 500,000 are dead, and they're fighting back and forth. Confederacy, the North versus the South. And what happens? After 4 years, the North prevails. Ulysses S. Grant, the general, defeats Robert E. Lee in the South. And as a result, when the Civil War ends, the slaves are freed, and Reconstruction begins. During this time, Lincoln, he issues the Emancipation Proclamation, which says that all slaves shall be free. And then he has this Gettysburg address, classic. Very simply, he says, government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall endure for the rest of time. And here we are, government of the people, by the people, for the people. Abraham Lincoln, you can go on for hours talking about all his speeches, his demeanor, his determination to preserve the United States of America, to preserve the Union. If it wasn't for him, let's say the South gets their way and wins the Civil War, we would have had 2 presidents, maybe 3 presidents, because each state will say, hey, we want to establish our own thing and go that. But no, Lincoln had the vision, the United States of America. We are all one people in America. The Union. He fought and fought, dealt with all the generals, brilliant strategies, and the North prevails and wins the Civil War. Sadly, after the war is ending in 1865, about a month later, he gets assassinated. Talk about a martyr. But Abraham Lincoln, read his autobiography. I've tried to read as much as I can on him, and it seems like the more you read, the more you find out about this guy. He had a hard time, too. Him and his wife lost their son during his 4 years in office. And then his wife had a hard time dealing with everything. Can you imagine 4 years, your whole 4 years, you're dealing with a civil war and casualties and 500,000 people are killed, and they're fighting. Aren't they fighting over what? The South wanted to keep the slavery and have their own union, and the North, they wanted to free the slaves and keep the United States going. Abraham Lincoln, how about that? All right, let me just recap. You know, I used to play a game when I was a kid. Can you name all the presidents in succession? I used to be able to do it, but now that I'm older, I can't do it. But it used to be a game, right? And here was the game. List them all in order. Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, Adams, Jackson, Van Buren, Harrison, Tyler, Polk. Taylor, Fillmore, Pierce, Buchanan, Lincoln, Johnson, Grant, Hayes, Garfield, Arthur, Cleveland, Harrison, Cleveland again, McKinley, Roosevelt, Taft, Wilson, Harding, Coolidge, Hoover, Roosevelt, Truman, Eisenhower, Kennedy, Johnson, Nixon, Ford, Carter, Reagan, Bush, Clinton, Bush, Obama, Trump. Could you do it without reading it? I used to be able to do it. But how about that? All right, as far as my countdown, I'll tell you again, just so that you can remember how I did it. This is my opinion, my subjective analysis. You can have your own order, and other people have their own order from worst to best. This is mine. William Harrison, James Buchanan, Andrew Johnson. All right, starting from 44, and I'll go down to 1. 44, William Harrison. 43, James Buchanan. 42, Andrew Johnson. 41, Franklin Pierce. 40, John Tyler. 39, Millard Fillmore. 38, Zachary Taylor. 37, James K. Polk. 36, Martin Van Buren. 35, Warren Harding. 34, Herbert Hoover. 33, James Garfield. 32, Benjamin Harrison. 31, Rutherford B. Hayes. 30, Chester Arthur. 29, John Quincy Adams. 28, Woodrow Wilson. 27, Andrew Jackson. 26, Jimmy Carter. 25, Barack Obama. 24, George W. Bush. 23, Gerald Ford. 22, George H. Bush. 21, Richard Nixon. 20, Bill Clinton. 19, Lyndon B. Johnson. 18, Donald Trump. 17, John Kennedy. 16, Grover Cleveland. 15, Ulysses S. Grant. 14, Harry Truman. 13, William McKinley. 12, Dwight D. Eisenhower. 11, Calvin Coolidge. 10, William Taft. 9, Franklin D. Roosevelt. 8, Ronald Reagan. 7, Theodore Roosevelt. 6, John Adams. 5, James Monroe. 4, James Madison. 3, Thomas Jefferson. 2, George Washington. 1, Abraham Lincoln. How about that list? Again, you could move some guys around. For example, Carter, Obama, Bush, Ford, Bush, Nixon, and Clinton, LBJ, and Trump, and Kennedy you can kind of move them around a little bit right in there. But how about the succession of these presidents? Isn't it interesting? You got Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe. These are the founders of our country. Then John Quincy Adams, he's the son of John Adams, so he believed in the principles. So he's the 6th president. You get Andrew Jackson. He kind of tough guy there. He gets gone. Martin Van Buren. But these guys, Martin Van Buren, Henry Harrison, John Tyler, Polk, Taylor, Fillmore, Pierce, and Buchanan, right in that section from 1830s to the 1860s. These were poor presidents. And these guys should have prevented the Civil War, but they didn't. Abraham Lincoln comes in, saves the Union, frees the slaves. He's the 16th. Andrew Johnson follows him and has a hard time, and he gets impeached. Ulysses S. Grant comes in. He's a military guy, but he can't get along with the legislator. So they start the Reconstruction. There's fighting and squabbling going back. Rutherford B. Hayes, not known for much of what he does. Garfield only lasts 1 year. Chester Arthur, not much going. But Cleveland, he got it going. Grover Cleveland picked it up. Benjamin Harrison struggled a little bit. Cleveland gets elected. He loses to Harrison. Harrison doesn't do much, and so Cleveland, he runs again and wins because of what he did before in his first term. How about that? William McKinley, the turn of the century, he picks it up, gets the economy going. Roosevelt, he gets the national parks. He's 42 years old. He gets going as far as our country. Teddy Roosevelt had some flaws, but got it going. William Howard Taft, you have the 1900s. He's 1909. Woodrow Wilson, for some reason, we get into World War I, and he not very impressed with Wilson. He's in the 1913 through the 21. Harding, terrible president. I don't know what happened there, beginning of the 1920s, but Calvin Coolidge, he turns things around, gets the economy going, but Herbert Hoover couldn't figure it out. You get the stock market crash, 1929, the Great Depression. So Franklin Roosevelt comes in with his New Deal in 1933, gets it turned around, gets the economy picking up with his social programs, Social Security and so forth, but then enters into World War II in 1941, so he has to deal with that for 4 years. Harry Truman says, all right, enough is enough. We'll drop the atomic bomb on Japan and end this thing. As a result, it ended. So he gets going, passes the night. He serves from 45 to 53, but then Eisenhower, he's a military general that served in World War II. He gets the boom of the 1950s. Cars, houses, people migrating all over the place. John Kennedy comes in. He's got the charisma. And he gets some of his social programs going. I like Kennedy because he had the tax cuts, but he gets involved with the Bay of Pigs and the Cuban Missile Crisis and says, hey, Cuba, get out. Or no, he says, Russians, get out, or else. That's a little risky there. That could have been a war. But he gets assassinated. Lyndon Johnson comes in. He gets the Civil Rights Act going, but then he's involved in the Vietnam War. Oh, man, what a mess. And the college campuses are erupting, and people are saying, bring our soldiers home, and they're dying. Lyndon Johnson had a hard time. But give him credit for the Civil Rights Act. Richard Nixon comes in, and he says, hey, I want to deal with the other nations. He visits China, he visits Russia, and he establishes relations. But as a result, they're empowered. But then when he wants to run again, he breaks into the Democratic headquarters and Watergate scandal. And as a result, he resigns because he lied and cheated. Nice going, Richard. Gerald Ford takes over, can't do much. He wasn't even elected. He just took over because he was the vice president. So he tries to get things going, but you get the energy crisis. We're short on oil and gas. He tries to run again, but loses, or he tries to run for president and loses to Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter comes in, tries to get some social programs, good principles, help people out. We get the Iran crisis. and the energy crisis going through his term, and didn't know how to govern as well as the other presidents. So Ronald Reagan beats him in 1980 and says, hey, I'll figure things out. So he has the tax cuts. He invests in the military. He gets things going. People have jobs and the economy booms. But the flaw that Reagan had was that he was too old. And toward the end of his term, second term, he had Alzheimer's. And one time they questioned him, and he didn't know what to do. Other people were making decisions for him. That was the closest we came to the 25th Amendment, where the vice president takes over because the president can't handle it. So his vice president, George Bush, after 8 years of Reagan, he says, hey, I'll continue what Reagan's doing, and he gets elected. But he was a good, strong military guy, dealt with the foreign powers pretty good, dealt with Kuwait. He had the Gulf War and all that, and he helped free them. But he has a hard time dealing with the legislature and getting his programs through, and had to raise some taxes because the deficit starts to grow. Bill Clinton comes in and beats him because George H. Bush only serves one term and gets beat. And Bill Clinton comes in and says, hey, I'll get the social programs going. I'll lean on the surpluses that we've got in the Treasury. I won't spend as much. But he gets involved in too many liberal policies and overextending to help those who shouldn't get the help, like criminals. I don't know, I may be exaggerating there, but I think the problem Clinton had was trying to extend too much and not having people take responsibility for their own actions. And he does have some surpluses, but then he gets involved in a sex scandal and lies to the FBI and loses his law license. So what happens at the end of 8 years, you think the vice president, because of the surpluses, would get in. Al Gore loses to George W. Bush. Close election there. And Bush comes in, and what happens in his first year? 9/11, Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. They bomb the World Trade Center, and Bush has to deal with that. And he gets so frustrated and mad, and he says, hey, I'm going over to Iraq, and I'm going to start bombing them and take care of Saddam Hussein. And that was his flaw, because as they go over there, we start losing our American soldiers, which I did not agree with. If you're going to fight a war, you win the war without any casualties. Can it be done? It has been done in the past. So Bush is too aggressive, goes over there, we start losing our guys. Eventually, Saddam Hussein is captured, and Taliban is dealt with. But you would think that the success of maybe the Iraq War, there was a debacle of the weapons of mass destruction, was the intelligence right and all that. So you would think George Bush's vice president would carry on the tradition and get elected. Well, what happens? Vice President Cheney doesn't want to run for president. And what happens? Barack Obama, the Democrat Party, they come in. They say, hey, we're not going to be warmongers. We're going to try things out. So he comes in, he gets 2 terms. He's a liberal, and he tries to help the people, but his flaw was mandating too much. His health plan, Obamacare, healthcare system, took away a lot of good coverage for people because they wanted to keep their plans and their doctor. But if you're going to roll into Obamacare, you don't get the same doctor, you don't get the same plans, you have to take the government plan. Obama's intentions were good to help the needy and the poor, but Obama's flaw was couldn't compromise. You had the Republicans in the House of Representatives in control, and Obama just couldn't get along with them. As a result, not much got done during his term. He got the health care thing going, but turns out that it's pretty expensive. A lot of spending, deficit goes up, not much economic growth through Obama. So what happens? Trump comes in. Clinton tries to run, Hillary Clinton tries to run on Obama, but gets beat by Donald Trump. Why? Because he's a progressive. He says, I know how to handle corporations. I know how to handle economy, the business. I'm going to get things going. And he does, passes the tax cut. More people have more money, more people have jobs. African Americans have more jobs. Asian Americans, Mexican Americans, they have more jobs. But what happens with Trump? He's too brash, too outspoken, says my way or no way. And then a pandemic, a virus comes in. He has to shut things down. The economy tanks. People are frustrated. And what happens? Trump only serves one term and gets beat by Joe Biden, of all people, who's 78 years old. And we have no idea what he wants to do. But he's going to be our 45th president. So, wow. Our U.S. presidents. We've had 44. We're going to have a 45th. You got some good guys in here. You got some poor guys in here. That's my ranking of U.S. presidents. What do you think? I'm a history major. I'm a geography major. We learn from the past. I'm going to try to read more about our presidents. If I mistakenly said something about somebody, I apologize, as far as if I said a fact and it turns out not to be the fact. I was just generally speaking about the presidents. I wasn't literally speaking of everything they've done, because obviously they've had the good things they've done, the bad things they've done. But you've got to admit that some of these guys outperformed other guys. Who are my favorite presidents? You got to go with Abraham Lincoln, fighting the Civil War and preserving the Union. I'll repeat it again and again and again. Abe Lincoln, one of my favorites. I like George Washington because he fought in the American Revolution, big general, tough. I like Jefferson, Declaration of Independence, the Vision. Madison, Monroe, I like these guys. Adams, John Adams. A lot of the signers of the U.S. Constitution at that time. Can you imagine all the debates they had? You know, the original signers. John Hancock, Benjamin Franklin was in there. All these guys. Independence Hall, Philadelphia, hashing out the executive, legislative, and judicial branch, the Bill of Rights, and so forth. Who else I like? I like Taft. I like Teddy Roosevelt. I like Reagan. The first Bush, I liked him. He seemed like looked like a president to me, George H., but he kind of flaked off. Is that the right word? I don't know what happened to him. Who else I like? I like Nixon. I don't know why. I liked it when he went over to China and met the guy on his soil. That was bold. What other president did that? He goes all the way over to China, a communist country, and he meets with the guy and has dinner with the guy and says, hey, let's have world peace. Richard Nixon, that was bold. Lyndon Johnson, the civil rights. He was a Texan. He had the Vietnam problems. John Kennedy has the charisma. I liked his tax cut. And you know, he knew how to speak to people. When he gave a speech, he was brilliant. So that's what you need in a president. You need how to communicate with people. John Kennedy. Eisenhower was tough. I don't know about Truman dropping that atomic bomb. Would you do it? Franklin Roosevelt, the New Deal, getting out of the Great Depression. But, you know, he ends up in a wheelchair. You want a president who's in the wheelchair? Man, who else? Cleveland, Grover Cleveland. He had a vision for the economy going. Ulysses S. Grant, I like that he won the Civil War. He did not back down to Robert Lee. He fought and won. I like that. But as far as a president, he had a hard time because he wanted it his way. I'm disappointed with these other guys like Martin Van Buren, Harrison, Tyler, Paul Taylor, Fillmore, Pierce, Buchanan. I'm disappointed with those guys. Andrew Johnson, Garfield, Hayes and Arthur, McKinley, Benjamin Harrison, Warren Harding. Man, probably be one of the worst. Coolidge, I like Coolidge. But Hoover, how could you let the stock market crash? You're in charge. Come on, Hoover, 1929 to 1933, bad presidency. Who I missed out? Gerald Ford, not much. Carter, a little slow. Reagan, Clinton, good and the bad. Obama, again, he's trying, but a little too liberal. You gotta be moderate. You gotta be, I think for a president, the most important thing you need is what? Leadership, communication skills. This is where Obama and Trump, both of them, had a hard time. They couldn't communicate to get both sides together. What else do you need in the presidency? You have a vision, you care about the folks, and you do something. You don't just be in office. That's why I'm concerned about Joe Biden. He'll get in office, he'll have his cabinet advisors, but will he actually get things done? Will legislation pass? That's why I like Reagan. He got his tax cuts. Bush got some tax cuts. Kennedy did. Clinton kind of raised taxes. Obama raised taxes. But some of these other guys, I'm disappointed in, guys who are there for 4 years, and they're concerned about foreign powers, but not concerned about getting rid of slavery. And that was in the 1830s to the 1860s, those guys. But I'm impressed with our founding fathers. Oh man, they had the vision. Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those first 5. And I gave you my order. I could go on and on about our presidents. Presently, we have 435 House of Representatives, and we have 100 senators, and we have the presidency. And the year 2021, we're dealing with a 50-50 country. I really hoped it would be like a 75-25 country, where 75% we agree and 25% of the people don't agree. You're going to have those people who want to have their own socialist programs, but you would think the country would want to keep America going, strong, prosperous, and that we can agree to disagree. Minor disagreements, but on the major things we would agree. A strong economy, a good lifestyle for people, a safe country with military, keep us safe, and that we expand, and that we grow, and that we stand as one country, America. God bless America. God guide America. I'm glad to be living in America. Would you like to live in Mongolia? Nothing against the Mongolians. Would you want to live there? How about Indonesia? How about Communist China? How about Soviet Russia? How about some of these poor countries? I feel sorry for them. Latin America, Caribbean. I visited them. I see. You go visit. You take a cruise ship and you go visit some of these Caribbean poor countries, and you compare that with the United States of America. I'll take America. Of course, as a country, we try to help these other countries, and I don't mind, but I don't want to be sending money over to countries that devalue human life. For example, it's communism, dictators, criminals, and yet we're sending money over there. What's going on? That's why I want my president to watch out for that and care for America first. I'll say it. I want America first. Some liberals say, no, we should be a world, global economy. I don't agree with that. There's no way we could be a world, global nation. We can hope for world peace. All right, I've been opining and I've been blathering. What do you think of my U.S. president's rankings? If you have a better ranking, show it to me and I'll look at it. But for now, Ken Artizone, thanks for watching. God bless the United States of America. I'm out.